It's strange that our problems actually only exist in our mind. If your mind was that of a bird, you would have very little problems. And surely your mind is greater than a bird's. And I think that's why it has the opportunity to find problems, but it also has the opportunity to dismiss them and realize they're just part of your story. If you could suddenly change your story, or imagine perhaps that you were someone else or another creature, the problem of your other self would seem meaningless. And in fact, to most of us, others' problems don't seem as big as ours. So I want to look at a story today. After the cats are done eating, what are they eating, you might ask? Fresh beef liver and hearts, their favorite. So I thank you for being here this week. I love you all. God bless and welcome. So I prepared some ideas in advance, days ago, and after 2 nights of sleep, it all seems like a dream. I want to talk about a tower in Cleveland, Ohio. I want to discuss some farm, also in Ohio, a Gilded Age farm, and some other things that I've saved up here. So I was watching this video on YouTube, and it suggested a video about a 1,000,000-square-foot building, something I discuss all the time, the impossibility of building 1,000,000-square-foot buildings full of glass and towers and tech. And this was said to be the biggest Gilded Age mansion estate, sitting on 3,500 acres. It was built by a man, a suspicious man, named Ohio Columbus Barber. I'm not making this up. He went by OC. So his name is Ohio, in Ohio. Very original story. And this story made me laugh out loud to myself, and I thought that's enough reason to share it. Lao Tzu, the ancient philosopher, maybe not so ancient, says when a fool hears the truth, he laughs. Or perhaps when the presented truth is foolish, we laugh. Either way, a man named Ohio was born into a working-class family in a modest Ohio village called Middlebury. His father made matches by hand. It's pretty advanced, actually. I would have a difficult time making a match, procuring the thermite. Pretty advanced to be a matchmaker in this time period, akin to Prometheus. But anyway, told all of this was very modest, he would leave school as a teenager to sell matches from a horse-drawn wagon. He became a partner in the family business by the time he was 21. This was 1880. The matchmaker, the modest matchmaker. Pretty ambitious at 21, he jumps in the business. The Barber Company was one of the biggest match producers in the nation. That's it. I mean, this moves really quickly. Selling matches from a horse and wagon in the late 1800s. By 1881, he orchestrates a massive merger that formed the Diamond Match Company, which soon controlled nearly all match sales in the country. This is crazy. In 1891, he founded the city of Barberton. That's it. Selling matches out of a wagon to controlling match sales throughout the nation, shipping, receiving, everything. And now, in 1891, he founded the city of Barberton with a dream of building a modern community, industrial and residential. And he did. He moved his factory there in 1894, making hundreds of millions of matches every day. So this man is another genius character. Seems like everyone that is given a wiki page from the 1800s was a genius. And really, just giving credit to all of this, the factory, the whole damn town. Now you can just explain away thousands of buildings, even an industry, even a company, a matchmaking company, which I think still exists today. Given credit to this man in Ohio, named Ohio. As if that's not enough. He built all of this. He built a town, a factory to sustain the town. Now he decides to create the Anodyne Farm. And that's really what I was getting to. Let's take a quick pause. Okay, the Anadine Farm. He built 35 elegant buildings, installed the latest farming technology. So this is really fascinating because he builds these Gilded Age mansions for animals, we are told. So he builds a town for matches, and now he's going to build a beautiful estate for animals. He's going to put animals in these castles. Crowned with a glass-topped elevator, the mansion sprung up within a year. Day in and day out, caravans of horse-drawn wagons could be seen carting trees around the property. Until finally, the only thing left to do was to watch the grass grow. Just overly simplifying everything this man is given credit for creating. So now we take a little tour of the property. We cross the bridges and pass by some truly incredible buildings. It would be impossible to wind our way through all 3,500 acres. So we now skip ahead to the main attractions, starting with barn number 1. Barn. Beyond the fields of flowers and vegetables, we spot 2 massive towers. We see barn number 3 starting to come into focus. We get a closer look at the exquisite masonry, which allowed his farm animals to live in style. Though he kept most of the animals separated, colts had their own barn, pigeons had a massive pigeon house, and the pigs had their own palace, known as the piggery. And that was the part that made me laugh out loud, especially because the author of the video was trying to be serious. I mean, he thought he was serious. And let's take a moment. Is this story sounding legit? The pig palace? Let me flash a picture of the pig palace. I mean, these things are like World's Fair buildings. You could have had a World's Fair out here. 3,500 acres, hundreds of buildings, so many that he's just putting pigs in them and other livestock. And are they just having fun with us, especially with these more obscure historical accounts in such a short amount of time? Following Barber's death in 1920, the majority of the structures on the farm were demolished. Efforts by the Barberton Historical Society have succeeded in preserving and restoring 6 of the original buildings. That includes barn number 1. Okay, here we can see barn number 1. They have the nerve, really. Barn. The Barber Colt Barn, again, another barn, for the colts. So this was for the horses. Again, the time period. Early 1900s. Building structures like this for livestock. Here we can see the creamery, 1909. This one has survived. All brick. Arches have now been bricked up to facilitate square windows. Really poor pictures here. Thank you, Barber Historical Society. The Barber Machine Barn, not showing us a picture. And the Barber Piggery. Here we go. Just a weak picture here. They don't want us asking too many questions or getting too suspicious. Even the crappy barn door, just wood. Here we go. I live in a 300 square foot building and I have no complaints. Here in 1900, such a structure was built for pig. Now, either we have completely gone backward or this story is pure BS. Let's take a pause. Okay, part 2. This is something that I've been staring at for too long. It tells us here that these are plaster cast relief carvings from Hereford Cathedral. Plaster cast relief carving. So that means they're going to carve into wood or something, we would be told. And then they're going to pour plaster into the relief, and this will be the result. And it looks pretty Mickey Mouse. It looks pretty experimental, like broken pieces have just been applied to the brick. I mean, I believe that all of these were made, not carved, especially not pieces like this. These are manufactured. Some of them may be attempts to carve and plaster, and yet some seem perfect. Something like this, for example. There's no carving this into a relief. Look at this. You're gonna stick a chisel in here, in between. It's pretty damn advanced. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at. And when did they tell us the Hereford Cathedral was built? This cheap little sign. They tell us the cathedral building was begun. Such strange wording. Begun in 1079. Why not the present building began in 1079? Began construction. No, they can't lie. They must color truth. Anyway, 1079. Hallelujah. And really blurring the line between cathedral and castle. But anyway, back to this relief carving. So this junk has essentially been glued to this old brick. English photographer, Lemire, first name Bedford. Creation date of the photograph, 1874. 1874? What the hell's going on here? Have they removed all this junk? Or did they just perfect it and eventually refacade this whole thing? I don't know. Looks pretty damn weathered, like nothing has been done for 1,000 years. And could you build something like this 1,000 years ago? We discuss if people could build things like this 200 years ago. But 1,000? No bathroom? Shouldn't we have beautiful outbuildings if we're to believe the stories they give us? Here's another plaster cast from Westminster Abbey. They tell us the date of this photograph is 1874. And I don't buy it. I don't buy that people are hand carving wood relief vessels and pouring plaster in them. These look manufactured. Here's a picture in Mexico, the Salta del Agua fountain. Creation date 1885 to 1895. And this is fascinating. An early time period. This huge fountain, and people are gathering water here. We can see their round canteens. These look like military men and villagers around them. Clearly post-reset. And who are these people? Now missing limbs? I think about this research all the time. I can't help it. We see these people of Mexico, and they clearly don't seem like builders of this. And this is massive. This is like an aqueduct. You can see it behind them. My thought was, even though these people are clearly inheritors, what kind of knowledge has been retained post-reset? I've said before in past videos, I think this was a unified people. We can see this by the way they build. We see the same buildings all over the world is what I'm saying. Especially the cathedrals, all sharing the same hand and artistry. The governmental buildings, although the governments vary in values and philosophy, they all have the same cities. We all have the same cities. In ruins, in plain sight. And I feel like all nations have retained a piece of the old world. All nations have a strong point. All people. When I look at India and China, they have retained wisdom of the spirit and of medicine and continue to practice these traditions. When I look at the French, they've retained certain culinary traditions such as steak tartare. And when I look at the Mexicans, and this is where my thought stemmed from, they have retained building. Mexicans can build in the old world techniques. So we'll take one more pause and look at something else for our final segment. Okay, final segment. I'm going to try to get through 6 points in this one. Here we can see more of this, what I believe is absolutely manufactured, off-site facading, and perhaps structural as well. Unbelievable. And here we can see New York State Capitol building and a column. I love these columns with this geopolymer blend that gives the impression of marble. This piece is flaunting genius, just flaunting it, the complexity. You have to make this piece as one. Wrap your head around that. I Am Kairos recently shared a link, and this is it. The most exotic Vanderbilt race course in 1915. So they were essentially racing cars around the World's Fair. They turned it into a track, and here we can see the track and we can see the grounds. Unbelievable. And why would you race cars through here? A last-ditch effort to profit off of this old inheritance. Now it's a racetrack. Here we can see it in 1915. Nobody around. Looking so old. And this tower back here looks like it's been penciled in, at least part of it. Here we can see some guys, and we get a good look at the overgrown landscaping. This palm tree looks like it's been manicured a little, but these ones over here have not. Just look at this scene. Look at this world. And now that same vantage point, the palm trees look much larger, and these buildings don't have scaffolding. They're perfect, just perfect. Weathered towers, just an unbelievable scene. And here we can actually see the race taking place, just ripping through these dirt streets. I mean, again, if you built all of this, wouldn't you have paved the roads? I mean, couldn't you just sacrifice one of these towers and use the material to lay a road? No. According to history, no. And there probably is a road under here. Just has several feet of mud on it. So fascinating. Thank you. I am Cairo's channel for sharing this. Next, we're going to look at the Levesque Tower. This ties into one of my last videos where I was discussing these super statues, and someone told me that there's some of those same style statues on this Levesque Tower. If I recall, this thing was built in 1 year. Let's look at that real quick. The Levesque Tower in Columbus, Ohio, again Ohio, and the bridge from my previous video was also in Ohio, Cleveland. This was the tallest building from its completion in 1927. Designed by a man with the last name of Crane. How ironic. It was opened as the American Insurance Union Citadel. Design and construction. It was commissioned by a group in 1894. So they start thinking about this thing in 1894. Here another closer look at those statues and just the absolute detail and oldness of this building. Pretty unbelievable and frivolous, right up to the tip top. Designed in the Art Deco or Art Modern style, the building took inspiration from Byzantine architecture. Pretty unbelievable. All the detail were given for this building. Essentially a 1-year wonder. And this is the part that interested me. Elevators in the building were a micro self-leveling type. A shuttle elevator ran from the 41st floor to the observation deck. A restaurant up at the top. The observation deck would be open to the public for 25 cents. And here we can see that the top of the tower was also designed to accommodate mooring for Zeppelins. Later, it housed radio antenna. So that's why I wanted to share this. In the early designs and history, we had Zeppelins. Not a balloon, a fully enclosed vessel that used gases rather than just hot air. And the Zeppelin is the big missing part of our history. In my last video, I discussed how we lack cranes in this early time period. However, these Zeppelins go way back, and they could essentially be used as air cranes, or sometimes today called sky cranes. And here she is today. Now you can get a Starbucks in here. And I want you to notice how the tops of the buildings resemble star forts. Look here. Starfortish from the top, even here. What I sometimes call plug holes that could just be filled in with mud. And what we're just seeing is the tops of buildings, especially the ones that are on the coastlines, which most star forts are, with some exceptions, like in New Mexico. Just 1 block away from this building is the Ohio State Courthouse. I'll have a little look at that. Here she is. And here's another look from the other side. Now this is a star fort in the Philippines, the Bularte de San Diego. So even in the Philippines you have these star cities. We see 1 corner and 1 plug hole here. We see another little piece jutting out over here. No doubt a star fort. So the Filipinos were also building French bastion forts. to protect from cannon fire. So I think that's it. So much more to say and see, but for this week, I think that's all I've got. I love you all. God bless, and I'll see you in the next one.